Hello and welcome to House Calls, Meeting Your Real Estate Needs. I'm Emily Almeida. This is our premiere podcast, and I'm happy to share it with my friend Laurel. First, a little bit about me. I am an Illinois State University grad. I have a degree in nursing. I worked in the nursing field for many years. Spent 20 years working with women and children in labor delivery, nursery, and really enjoyed that. That was really my passion. And when I retired from nursing, I really wanted something else to do and thought real estate is a great way to continue helping people kind of in a transition period in their life. So I'm thoroughly enjoying this, and I've been doing real estate since 2009, so quite a while. Mm-hmm. Laurel, I am so glad you're here.
Yeah, this is going to be fun, I think.
So Laurel and I go way back. Laurel is also an RN who also worked with women and children. We worked at St. Joe together, but she's also had kind of a varied career, as have I. We've done different things with our nursing degrees. So Laurel, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll talk about why you're here.
All right. Well, my name is Laurel, and as Emily said, I've been a nurse for many years as well, too. And, nursing is such an interesting career because it can go in so many different directions. And I think for all of us that have been doing nursing for a long time, you get to a point where you think, what's next? What's the next chapter? Mm-hmm. And so it's exciting to see Emily really having that opportunity to pursue something that she's just loving to do. My life is at the point now where I am an empty nester. I've been one for a few years. And I'm also a support giver for my parents at the ages that they are now. And so it's a situation that is certainly not unique. I think everybody gets to that stage in their life. But it's one that does bring up different challenges and just makes you look at life a little bit differently.
So that is why Laurel is here. One of the topics that I'm asked about frequently is just about downsizing. And what sorts of thoughts, what sorts of things does one need to do to prepare themselves to downsize? And I invited Laurel here because she is at that stage. You're kind of a little bit past the sandwich generation in that your kids don't need you as much, but you are definitely, responsible for healthcare needs, daily support of your parents. So let's talk a little bit about where you live and kind of just what the thought process is with you and your husband.
Well, my husband and I live in a very typical Midwestern home. It's a 2-story house, 4 bedrooms, nothing fancy. It's a nice house. It's in a nice neighborhood. It's close to schools. Sounds like I'm putting it up for a listing, doesn't it? And I mean, it's a nice home, but it's not super fancy. It's just a nice, good family home. And it's funny because as I was thinking about the getting together and doing this with you, I was putting some stuff in my formal living room the other day because we're doing a little bit of work around our house, and so I was just moving stuff around. And as I walked into that formal living room, I had the realization that I cannot remember the last time I used that room.
Yeah.
Because my husband and I don't take up that much space anymore. We are in the kitchen, we're in the TV room, and we're in the bedrooms and the bathroom and my home office. So, as I thought about that, and I'm thinking we have this nice, fairly big house for 2 people. It just brings up questions and makes me wonder what's next. What should we be looking at?
And I think it's important. I mean, we talked about the fact that you are very involved with your parents' care, but they don't live with you currently.
No, and my mother lives fairly independently, so it's not a daily care that I'm doing. But it's just that realization that I'm there for their support, and sometimes when they have a health issue or something, I'm called in to help with that, support them as I can.
And your home would not really be suitable to move an elderly parent into.
No. I mean, if I had somebody who had mobility issues, who needed to be, maybe recover from surgery or something where they needed that more day in and day out kind of care temporarily, my house would not work well for that. It would be possible to do, but it would be very difficult because of that two-story situation. So I know that I don't think this is unique either for someone in my age range or age of development to be looking at, can I get out of a two-story house?
Right.
Can that be my next step forward?
So I think that that's a nice segue, lead into the next sort of topic, because I think the very first thing when you're planning or thinking about a downsize is you have to really make an assessment of what your needs will be. And it's somewhat of a crapshoot. You're making an assessment of something you haven't done.
Right.
So you're trying to predict what the future needs may be. But we talked a little bit about, maybe having to move in an elderly parent or to have a spouse that maybe will be ill and would require a one-story home. Most downsizers will look for at least first floor living. Maybe not necessarily a ranch-style home, but something that would at least offer one bedroom, maybe more, on the main floor with a full bath. How many bedrooms do you think you would need?
Well, that's always a good question because I currently work from home full-time. And so one of my bedrooms acts as a home office. And then I do have my 2 adult children. They come back and visit. I have family members who come back and visit because this is where our parents are. So my house, jokingly, we say it's sort of the Airbnb of the family because people come and stay with us.
And we have to, watch our time on this one because Laurel's expecting family company today.
Yes. So but on the other hand, I think, do I really need the 4 bedrooms? So I look at that and think I would at least need 3, I think. And then I would need to have space that could be carved out to be a private office, whether that be an interesting little nook that's just creatively made into an office or something along that line. But I need space for that.
Which would work if you didn't have guests in the home.
Right.
Correct.
Right,
I mean,
right.
if you were entertaining your kids, and I know, your son is adding another person into the family.
Yes.
So it's like, as my mother used to say, they go away, but when they come back in multiples.
That's a good
And then
point.
you start adding grandchildren. So I know my mother in a 3-bedroom townhouse in Sycamore, Illinois, where Laurel went to high school. She was able to sleep like 17 people.
Wow.
The genders
Not only-
and the relationships had to work, but
I was going to say,
potentially
I
17.
would not want to do that. I'm glad your mother was able to make that work, but that is not something I would aspire to. But yes, you definitely want to have, I think about that. I want to have a place where my kids can come home. Right now, where we are located, we're geometrically in the middle of where they each live. They each live different directions by 2 to 3 hours, and we're right in the middle of that. So it is nice to think about them coming back and having space for them, and we love hanging out together. We're very silly, but we just have a good time. I think the other thing that is worrisome to me is, and this may be something else that people in your business could relate to, is I've lived in my current house for 28 years now.
Yes.
I don't even remember how to buy a house. So even just the business piece of that is intimidating to me. Trying to figure out how to condense 28 years of life into a smaller space is intimidating. And there's, of course, always that emotional component I think you have, and that's the house I raised my children in.
Right.
So that's hard, too. So there's a lot of things that line up that, not that they're barriers, but they're things that you have to think through.
You have to think through, you have to address them, and you need to be ready for that change. And I think with any change at any stage in life, there's always like the yin and the yang. So in what you may accomplish by downsizing, you're also losing a little bit, right, by selling the big house, by maybe, that burns spot is where I put the pan when, I had to run after one of my children. Yeah, so you're right. I mean, it is definitely can be an emotional move to do that.
And then the house is a little bit beat up because of raising 2 kids.
Correct.
And dogs and, whatever else. So then there's that aspect too, like, how much do we need to get ready to move to have the house ready? So it's a big decision. And I think I would love to have somebody who could just walk me through the steps of that.
Well,
and help me.
I'm so glad you came
out.
today because it just so happens.
I didn't say that to make that segue, but it does work well, doesn't it?
You've just been great. It's like I was paying you to do this.
You did get me a cookie, so
I did.
That helped.
So the first kind of thing, once you've sort of decided that this is what's going to happen, okay, and you've kind of assessed where you are, what your needs may be, start decluttering and start trying to organize your house. And I think there are lots and lots of guides out there on how to do this. I have a sister-in-law who keeps me organized. She's my organizer. And because it comes easier for some people than others. But a lot of people are advocates of like the keep pile, the donate pile, and the recycle, or garbage pile. So that's kind of a way to begin. I also think it's important that as you're doing that, just start packing things up. Packing up the things that you only visit once a year. Some of your holiday, decorations, or some old textbooks, things that maybe you want to hang on to, but you really don't look at them frequently. Get them packed because they're going to be moved anyway. So get a jump on that process.
That's actually a really good idea. And the timing of that's kind of good because we are currently going to be doing some work in our upstairs and having to clear out closets and everything in preparation for that. So that's kind of a good idea to, instead of putting everything back in the closet, maybe some of the things that we feel like we need to keep or want to keep can just go into a packing container.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Good idea.
Absolutely. And it's also, as you're doing this, make sure you label everything so that you remember what's in the box. Do you ever go into your freezer and you pull something out and you're like, I knew I was going to remember what that was, but then it got frozen and sort of changed in appearance?
I can do that in a week, even in my refrigerator. Like, when did I open that? Yes. Yeah, I took a work from home position in my organization about a year ago, and when I did that, I went through my closet because clearly work from home, I didn't need all the clothes I had before. And so I went through my closet pretty harshly, and I put everything into what used to be my daughter's old bedroom closet, and pretty much said, mark that date. On this date was the last time I wore any of these items. With the idea that I would, go in and a year later and say, I haven't touched these in a year. I have not had any occasion where I've needed to wear that particular dress or those particular slacks or something. So, I mean, even just applying that principle to other things is probably a really good idea.
Exactly. And I think another little tip for this, and I learned this from a friend from way back. She was my kid's first grade and kindergarten teacher. During her summer breaks, she would clean out her drawers. But she set like a goal of like a drawer a day. So that what seemed and felt really overwhelming became very manageable. So if you kind of break up the work or say, I'm going to work 15 minutes a day. I happen to do that. I threw away 20 tubes of lipstick. I know that's shocking to you. I have a little lipstick problem. But yeah, I threw away 20 tubes of lipstick 2 days ago, going through a drawer.
I really hope you're not going to start in on shoes, because I might have to draw the line there.
I already have. I got rid of 50 pair. My sister-in-law took them. She works at a mission, and so she took them. So
good.
They were being, they were going to a
my
good
husband will
cause.
say to me, why do you need so many? You need a pair of brown shoes and a pair of black shoes. That's all you need.
He forgot the tennis shoes. It's funny. Men don't get it.
Yeah. Are there services in town that help you declutter and organize?
There are. There actually are services.
I mean, something like that might be nice to just have as a reference or something for someone.
Sure.
To just get started, because I think that could be very helpful for some people to just say, come in and walk through my house with me and really challenge me on why I'm holding on to some of these things.
So that is exactly, and that's kind of our next, again, Laurel. It's like you could read my mind. It is.
I can't see your notes down there at all. My eyes aren't that great.
So the next thing would be to actually create a plan and make it as detailed as possible, and attach some deadlines. Create a timeline for when certain tasks are going to be completed. And one of the things to kind of help you do that is to enlist the help of people, of professionals. Maybe you need a mover. Maybe you need a cleaner to come in. Perhaps you'd mentioned that there's, some things in your house that you'd like to attend to before you'd ever consider putting it on the market. Do you need a handyman? Do you need an electrician? How about the sink that you've lived with that drip for 40 years. Now you're getting ready to sell, you get it fixed. So add those things to the plan so that those little items get addressed. It might also be helpful at that point to have a realtor come in and look at the house and just give you some advice about, fix this is not such a big thing. I actually did that today with a client and kind of went through and prioritized what things really should be addressed, and then these things would be nice if they were addressed, and if you have some time and energy and money left over, take care of these items. So I think that kind of helped you in making that plan usable and not feeling so overwhelmed that you have to do everything. So that would be the next step in this process. Now, the next one and it's very important, is really to make an assessment of your financial situation. Are you planning to pay cash for a new home? Is your equity in the old home, and you need that equity before you can move to the next one? There are some lenders who have some solutions for that that can, local lenders that could be very helpful with that situation. So at this point, you might want to talk to a lender, or you might want to talk to your financial planner and figure out what's the most beneficial for you. Maybe it's a small mortgage and mostly cash. So those are things that a financial planner can look at and tell you, for your personal situation, what's going to be beneficial. Do you want some of the tax benefits of homeownership, of having a mortgage or whatever? So those are things to talk about. The other question with having the equity in your home and needing the equity is that currently our market is so tight and our inventory is so low that you really want to be able to secure a home first before you sell your home. Because you wouldn't want to end up on the street. No. I do have extra bedrooms, and you're welcome.
And I know where you live.
Yeah, and you know where I live.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I was actually going to ask that, because I did wonder, does it make more sense to sell the house first? Because as a person who is a bit of a worrier, I always worry about being in that situation where all of a sudden you're making 2 house payments.
Right.
And that sounds really intimidating to me, especially at the point I am in my life where I also have to have an eye on retirement and financial security. So the idea of securing a house first and then hoping my house will sell is a bit frightening. I know right now things are selling generally pretty quickly.
Correct.
So that might not be as big a worry as it might have been 20 years ago, but it is still one of those worries.
And the worry may come again. I mean,
yes.
you have to, that's why it's good to enlist a realtor to help you just kind of identify what's happening within the market, what makes the most sense. I mean, there were days when we were used to having our homes on the market. If it sold in 3 months, we thought that was doing very well. It sold quickly. It was only on for 3 months.
Oh, yeah.
So you want to be able to kind of gauge what's going to happen. Personally, because I do know your house would sell quickly. And there are certain price ranges in which we have little to no inventory at all. So they're selling very quick. So, I mean, but that's a big piece of it, right? You need to know where you want to be, identify what price range you're comfortable in. And again, this kind of goes back to number one, where we're talking about assessing your needs and why you're making this move. People do it because they want more time. They want a simpler life. They want less yard to care for. They want to be able to travel. They want more cash to travel. They don't want their money tied up in the house anymore. So those are all sorts of things to consider.
I think something that is less maintenance than where I am now. Because travel is important, very important to me, and I don't want to feel like I've got to constantly be home to take care of X, Y, or Z. I'm not a homebody in general. I used to be into gardening and flower gardening and stuff a lot, but I'm not so much anymore. I can walk away from I can go to someone else's garden or to a botanical garden and enjoy it that way and not have to do any of the work. And I'm not a big homebody with home decor and all that kind of thing. That's just not. I like it in other people's homes, but it's not something that's necessarily that critical for me. I want something that's comfortable living, and that if I want to and I'm able to, and I want to be gone for 3 weeks to a month for some travel, I can do that.
You can just pick up and leave.
And go.
So that brings me to just another little aside. As we go back to assessing your needs, you might even want to think about what kind of home, other than a ranch style or a story and a half, what are you comfortable living in a townhome with other people? Are you okay living in an attached home? There are places in town that have got they're lovely, and there are 4 units attached, or some have got 3. So, I mean, those are things that you want to think about. A lot of those places offer yard care, so you don't have to take care of that. They offer snow removal.
That sounds good.
But it's also possible with a smaller yard, in a single-family home with a smaller yard, it's more affordable to hire that all done as well. So if you don't want to do it. But
are there neighborhoods, and I'm not going to say the word right, I just lost it. HOA fees. Are there neighborhoods is that common in this community to have HOA fees on top of your monthly rent or mortgage, etc.?
So in general, it is not that common to have, and we certainly don't have very many strict HOAs in this town. Some of them exist and ask for maybe an annual fee to cover some common grounds like entry signs or something like that. The exception to that is some of the homes that are more designed for senior living. Some of those have got some steeper HOAs, but they also take care of more of the outside. So you kind of have to think about what those HOAs are paying for. What are you getting in return? So, and some of those associations have got, I would say, maybe a higher standards in their. That's not maybe the correct way to state that, but less flexibility within the HOAs because they really do want to make sure that they maintain the neighborhoods as they are.
And that's something I'm assuming a realtor can talk you through and inform you about. It's not something you get surprised about after you've signed your name.
Yes, you should never be surprised by that. Ever. So, okay, so let's move on and just say that again, you have found the house. You've identified the home in which you want to live. We're packing up, getting your house ready. You've decluttered. Your closets look amazing. Your kitchen drawers are pristine.
Pristine.
That's right. So one of the things about getting your home ready to sell is just, it's not really magical. It's just needs to look good and be priced correctly, and that's a whole nother segment. But you want to make sure that it's really clean. Okay, so a house that smells good and doesn't have, the cobwebs hanging from the chandeliers. Mine might at home right now. You just want to make sure that there's a difference between the way we live and how we have our home on the market.
Right.
Okay, so that's something to think about. So that may require a cleaning person to come in, or you might want to hire a crew to do some deep cleaning, or maybe you enjoy that and have the time and want to do it yourself.
I do not.
Nor do I.
I would like to go on record really strongly that is not something I enjoy.
That is not, nor do I. I was so bad I had to fire myself. So